Today we're going to be doing another Dynasty Rookie Mock Draft, and today we are going back to the simulator. We're going to see how this baby works. We're going to test her out. Over at Fantasy Pros, they got a Rookie Mock Draft simulator, and we want to see how this thing runs. We have a randomized button here for a draft position. We're going to click that baby right now, and we're going to be picking from the 3 spot. I'm pretty sure this is super flex. It was yesterday. We're going to be doing a draft like this every day for as long as we can. And there's going to be a video every day, and we're going to be talking about these players. And we're going to start the draft. But before we do, you need to click that subscribe button, because we're talking about Dynasty Rookie Drafts here on this channel every single day this off season. We're talking about these players. We're getting you ready for your rookie drafts. We're helping you build your dynasty teams and everything else. Click that button. Stop missing out while I click this button. We'll click buttons together. 1, 2, 3, click. I clicked it. We're rolling. I'll click it again. I don't know if it's working. Now we're working. So here we go. First 2 picks off the board. Different from yesterday. And what is going on here? First 2 picks off the board. Let's look at that right here. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, first player off the board. I don't know how to make sense of that. That really happened. I don't see that being realistic. I've not seen that in one real mock draft yet. Just haven't. It makes this next pick for me easy. I could play around a little bit and go neighbors. It's a coin flip for me every single time. So with this pick, I'm going to go Malik Neighbors just to see what the draft does. Let's talk about Malik Neighbors real quick. So when it comes to him and Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm split down the middle. It really depends on how I wake up that morning. And I think they're both generational talents. On top of that, situation is huge for these 2 players. But I feel like both players have the odds stacked in their favor for hitting at the NFL level. Both players are studs. I want both of them on my team. I don't care which one at the end of the day, but I do favor one over the other. I think Neighbors, I like him a little bit more today. Marvin Harrison Jr., by the end of the week, I'll probably like him a little bit more. But back to the draft. Let's see what they're doing here. Over to the draft board. Looking at this first round, any more crazy picks? So Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May, Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers. So right here, pretty standard, except for it's a little shuffled up. I messed around with Neighbors. Again, these 2 guys right here, I garner at the same value. I switch off and on, so it's not like I'm really one ahead of the other. You do you with those 2 players. Jaden Daniels never really goes in this spot. He's usually back here. Caleb Williams is usually here. Things are a little bit different around here. Drake May sometimes gets pushed up here. Really depends. Really depends on the fancy of the quarterback position of that draft. Brock Bowers. Now we're seeing Michael Penix. So they're really squeezing the juice of the Superflex spot here in this draft. J.J. McCarthy behind Penix. I think yesterday J.J. McCarthy was like 4. I think it was the 4 quarterbacks off the board pretty early. First 5 picks or so. Brian Thomas Jr., Troy Franklin, Jonathan Brooks sneaking into the first round. We did have one crazy pick in the first round. That was a player that usually goes in like the 2nd or 3rd. I thought it was like Jalen Polk or somebody. But this draft, not too crazy. Not too crazy. Now we're coming to the 2nd round. Xavier Worthy, Trey Benson. Not too horrible here. This one I can get behind. Ladd McConkey, I'm not feeling it. A.D. Mitchell, I think that's a great value. Let's look at the cheat sheet here. A.D. Mitchell, Bo Nix, Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd. We got some good players here. But I feel A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell, come on down. A.D. Mitchell over Ladd McConkey, unless the situation is immaculate. And we're looking at A.D. Mitchell here, and I like him at the back end of the first round, early part of the 2nd round. I think that's great value for him. He's got a little bit of George Pickens to his game, but he also is a little bit more nuanced in breaking out his routes. On top of that, one thing you can say is his production profile is a little sketchy. But when you look at the value here, you're getting him in the back half of the first round, early part of the second. If he lands in a spot where there's a quarterback that's going to push it downfield, like a Josh Allen, and it's a good quarterback, then he's going to jump in value. But right now, the market's saying, hey, we kind of like you, but we want to see where you go. I think he's got some upside. We got some speed. We can get downfield. I think for the price here, early second round, I think it's a good get. So going back here, looking at the draft board, let's see what happened. So Ladd McConkey went next. Blake Corum, Bo Nix, Keon Coleman. Remember when he was being drafted around this area? They liked Jalen Polk on this side. He was going like around this range yesterday. Braylon Allen, Bucky Irvin. Bucky Irvin lost some steam. Jalen Wright, Javon Baker, early third. Audric Estimate off the board. Going back to the cheat sheet here. The running back position's getting zapped. Like, there's players I like. I like Will Shipley, and I like some of these guys down here as like 4th and 5th round gets. Wide receivers zapping pretty early too. I like Ricky Pearsall a lot. I like Roman Wilson. I think those are two players that I'd be after. And then I'm not really about the tight end position. So Roman Wilson, JT Sanders, or Ricky Pearsall. Those are the three I like. Xavier Legette in there. So again, when we look at this, look at the odds here for Xavier Legette, 18%. So things are starting to get a little tighter there. What I would say here, get your guy. Get your guy. And it is pretty split between Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, and Will Shipley. I like Xavier Legette. I really want to see where he goes. He could jump in drafts in the right spot. That's what I can say about him. JT Sanders, when it comes to the tight end spot, what are we in round 3? I like that value for JT Sanders in round 3. I just like that. I think that's a good price tag. Middle of the second, late second, it's a little too rich for my blood in this year's draft, especially with it being a tight end position. But once we get into round 3, and if the board is plucked and wide receiver and running backs dry, go ahead. I don't care. But Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, it's situational. Let's go with Pearsall. Let's go Pearsall. Let's roll it up. Let's roll it up with Ricky Pearsall. Let's talk about him real quick because we got good size adjusted athleticism. We can get downfield. We got good ball skills. Him and Roman Wilson both hit it off at the Senior Bowl. They both did well. They both did well at the Combine. They've both been gaining stock throughout the draft process. I like them both. Might be more situational with me. But again, when you're in a bunch of drafts, you're going to diversify between players. Once we know situation, we'll know what to do. But let's go back to the draft here. Our guy fell. Our guy fell in the draft. But we got to look at the draft board because something had to happen here. Xavier Legette, JT Sanders, Vital came off, Brendan Rice, Malachi Corley, Jalen McMillan, Ray Davis, Isaac Grando, Jermaine Burton, Tez Walker. I mean, I like some of these players. Will Shipley, though. I like him a lot. And we're going to slam that button. I like Malik Washington, too. Malik Washington went in the second round of yesterday's draft. I made fun of the draft for that. I made fun of Fantasy Pros for that. But we're clicking that button on Will Shipley. And the reason why is this guy can catch passes out of the backfield. He's good between the tackles. He can do a little bit of everything. It's the running back position. Probably going to get drafted early day 3, late day 2, somewhere in that range. But he's got the skills to give you some fantasy upside. That's all we're looking at. And it's at a cheap cost. But going back to the draft here. Isaiah Davis. We got some tight ends. A lot of tight ends. But let's look at the cheat sheet. Looking at the cheat sheet. Overall. Man, it's that. I like Davis. Luke McCaffrey's there. We got Jamari Thrash. I like him a lot. Todd Washington. Wide receivers getting pretty zapped up. We got some running backs. I like Dylan Johnson as well. Looking at the draft board, what happened after we picked? Spencer Rattler gone. That probably could have been my pick as well. Thinking about Superflex, I probably should have done that. I should probably pulled that trigger, maybe even in the 3rd round. That's too cheap for him. Joe Milton climbing up there. Johnny Wilson, a good sleeper. Dylan Labe, Schrader, Jacob Cowing, Cade Stover, Michael Pratt, Tyrone Tracy. I keep pointing him out. I need to talk about him more. I'm going to add him to the rankings video. Kendall Milton as well. I drafted him yesterday in the 5th round at around 5'11", 5'12". Going to the suggestions here. This is the spot of the draft where I pound running back. That's just what I do. That is my game. I will look at draft capital. I will look at the size versus receiving chops. Bigger running backs that catches passes out of the backfield is what I usually go with. Looking back at the cheat sheet for the running back position, or just go to the suggestions, I guess. Top running backs. Dylan Johnson, Rashid Ali, Frank Gore Jr. I like Frank Gore Jr. I like Dylan Johnson. I like Isaiah Davis too. I think Isaiah Davis is good at running between the tackles. I think he's got a lot of upside there. For a late rounder, small school guy. But you know what? Today, we're going to talk about Dylan Johnson. We'll talk about him a little bit more tomorrow, too. So, Dylan Johnson is a bigger running back, catches passes out of the backfield. Really, if he can lock into his roster, climb the depth chart a little bit, he could give you a little bit of something in fantasy. Again, a late-round dart throw. But in the later rounds, I'm chasing running backs who can catch passes. I'm chasing running backs with size. Bigger running backs who catch passes don't tend to leave the field. So, if he's climbing that depth chart, he gets his opportunity. That's going to allow him to get opportunities to score fantasy points. When we're looking at this spot of the draft, I'm not feeling too trendy at the wide receiver position. And if I'm feeling trendy at the wide receiver position, I'm drafting them a little bit earlier. But going back to the draft here, looking at these wide receivers, this is my class. This is my team that I drafted. Malik Neighbors, A.D. Mitchell. We're solid at wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall. 3 stud wide receivers in a row. If I don't hit on one of those, God help my soul. And then we round up with running backs. Will Shipley, Dylan Johnson. I'm feeling good about this. My team's gotten better. I don't even have a team. This is a mock draft, but my team has gotten better. But that's the mock draft. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.